up.
Mm-hmm. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. My brother. Where our goal here is to encourage one another, brother to brother. I'm going to give it some time to get some watchers. I know I had some people who asked me to tag them as soon as I went live, so I'm going to go on my profile right now and I'm going to tag some of you brothers who asked me to tag y'all when I went live. I just heard my voice in the other room. Oh man, my old lady in the my lady in the back room, and she got it. Trent, you gotta put your headphones on, baby. Oh, I know what that is. Oh, shucks. Hold on, guys. 1 second. 1 second. Shucks. I'm hooked up to the headphones, baby. I'm still hooked up to the Bluetooth. My fault about that. I was still connected to the Bluetooth. All right, there we go. My fault about that. I was still connected to the Bluetooth. All right. So what's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Welcome to my brother, where our goal is to encourage one another, one brother, one brother. I'm your host, Maurice Rush. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for coming out and watching. Today I have some very, very, very awesome guests who came out with me. But first, let me introduce the topic to you guys. Today we want to talk about daddy issues and what it's like for a male to grow up with the absence of a father figure or um, with an inconsistent figure and how that kind of impacts you as you get older. So first, I have my brother Hassan with me. So I'm gonna bring Hassan on first.
Yo, what's up,
Say what's up to the
everybody?
world.
Good evening.
Introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? Good evening. It's Hassan, South Philly, good friend of Rush. Been cool
Hmm.
for about what, about 10 years now.
Hmm. It's been a while. I
Right.
know I
You
was
know what
like
I'm saying?
21, 22 when we met. I'm 31, 32 now. So
Right.
now I got another good friend of mine, my brother Marcus. Um, go ahead, introduce yourself, Mark. Oh, let me unmute you. Oh, here
Hi,
we go.
Marcus, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Reese, for inviting me. And I guess main thing about me is I love working with college students, advising them. And, I work at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm also working on my doctorate over there, so I can help
Oh,
college students even more. So let's go.
mhm. And then I got my final brother, my brother Joshua, right here. Joshua, the man of God, the preacher. We bring him on. Go ahead and introduce yourself, bro.
Hey, what's going on? Named Joshua Harris. I'm just here, just to shed light. All of us have been through it, and I'm just going to share my experience and how I, came to the point that I'm at today.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, again, before I had to run off and turn my Bluetooth speaker off, I'm like listening, and everything started coming through the Bluetooth speaker in the other room. I kind of did this because, again, my goal is to break the silence around some things that guys are struggling with and men are dealing with that people just don't talk about for whatever reason. And one thing that got me to thinking was, well, last week we were talking about therapy on my last one, 2 weeks ago, and it got me to thinking about like how many things that guys are dealing with that people just don't talk about. And when we were talking about the thing of therapy, one thing I said was, there are men who've been molested, there are men who have been raped, there are men who have grown up without fathers, there are men who have been abused, men have been in bad relationships, and for whatever reason, no one talks about it, but expect you to heal from it, right? So you could be 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, still dealing with something that happened when you were 7, 8, 9 years old, and people just expect you because you're a man to have gotten through it. So I wanted to pick some of these topics and just kind of shine some light on it. Um, so this one, he got daddy issues too, was just kind of on my heart because I realized that absent fathers is a thing, right? I mean, we're not going to act like it's a myth. There are a lot of people who grow up without their fathers around or an inconsistent father figure. So um, to start things off, man, my first question for you guys is just what was it like for you growing up? You know, um, whichever one y'all want to take the bull by the horns first, go ahead. What was it like for you growing up?
I guess I'll start. Growing up, where I grew up at in South Philly, down by the projects, Tasker projects, everything like that. Initially it was good. I had two parents that was working, and I was just living like a normal kid. Didn't know if I was struggling or not. And then some way or another, I think at one point in time my father was maybe like an occasional user, and then it just got a hold of him a little bit, and we tried to hold it down as a family, but it just started spiraling down. So the beginning of my hardships kind of started when my father kind of started getting high and couldn't control it, couldn't hold down the job and things like that. So it started off good. Once he started struggling, that's when things began to get rough for us. Not saying that it's his fault, but that's kind of like the timeline of how it happened.
Josh, Mark, you guys want to go? Which one do you want to go?
Go ahead, brother Marcus.
Thanks a lot. No, I was born in North Philly. With mother and next oldest brother Pete.
Shout out to Pete. That's
Shout
my
out
brother.
That's my guy too.
And it was rough, man. It was rough. Our mother had mental health issues, and I was pulled out of there when I was 9. Went to go live with, spent a little bit of time, like very short, but I was in an orphanage or orphan home. I don't even know which one it was, but it was in some for a couple of days, and then my sister Bobby, she took me in, and not too long after that, I ended up going to, taking the test to get into Girard College. And once I got accepted there, I went there from 5th to 12th grade. And Girard, you stay there for the whole week. You come home on the weekends. My, father's not in the picture in any of that, but there's been, a lot of people who have really just played a part in me being here today. Male and female, so it is what it is,
Josh, what they say, you got the last.
I mean, to be honest, growing up without one was difficult, and it was. I can't say it was scary, because when that becomes your norm at such a young age, you don't know any different. You don't know any better. He left when I was a young age. He's a different man today than he was then, but the man that he was then was popular as a Rolling Stone. You know what I mean? And so, after my mom and him got divorced, it was, as I guess I started to feel it more as I got older, and there was questions that I wanted. And when school started having like Father Day, or dad come to the school to spend time, I'm seeing other kids' fathers, and I'm not there. You know what I mean? Or he's not there, I should say. And puberty, all those things that we all go through as men. There was nobody there to answer those questions. I had to lean on other people. And so, that instability, that level of neglect, knowing that someone exists that's supposed to be there, not being there, that's when I start to feel, and start realizing, maybe, I would draw myself on to other boys my age, or other grown men, because there was a void there. So I started to feel it once I became more conscious of it. And so then it became, more difficult. I felt like something was missing. I felt like there was more to myself. It'd be interesting because I would say something and my mom would be like, wow, that's what your dad say. Not knowing genetically, that information was passed down to me. And I'm like, why do I act like this? Why do I talk like this? Why am I this way? And it was because the father I saw maybe once a year, once every 2 or 3 years, he had those same character traits. So it was tough growing up without one.
Yeah. So You know what, Josh? It's funny. Well, not as funny. Just about myself. I did have both my mom. I grew up in a two-parent household. I did grow up in the projects though. My dad had a bad drinking problem growing up. He would get drunk, maybe half the weekdays of each week. It led to some things like theft of money and things like that around the house. And it kind of got to the point where, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I kind of repressed most of my childhood because just being woken up in the middle of like from having your parents yell at you and just getting cursed out. And by the time I got to high school, once I got my first job, I remember coming home from work and my dad would be like passed out on the couch and like trying to sneak up the stairs to my bedroom because I didn't want to wake him up and get yelled at or anything like that. And I would, no, I never made it to the top. He always called me, but so my experience is different from you guys. I did grow up in a two-parent household, but I don't understand what it's like, through his shortcomings, through my dad's vices. Like, he passed away in 2010. He was an amazing father. I mean, like, if you could look past the vices that he had, like, he was there if I was playing in a basketball game. He was there if parent-teacher conferences. He was there. If my car broke down, he was there. Like, he was always there. He may not have always been the most accurate example to follow, but he was there. So my experiences are a little bit different than what you guys' experiences are. And that kind of leads me to my next question. The next question is, what did you turn to in order to fill that void of, the absent father? What are some things that you guys might have turned to? I know, Joshua, you started to get into it a little bit, so I'll give the floor to you to kind of take this one first.
Honestly, the first thing I turned to, I didn't know how to process it at such a young age. So, to be honest, I started realizing I started developing a bad temper. And so for me, the first thing was anger. For some reason, the release of expressing that anger, because like you kind of touched base on it when you was introducing and you were saying things, we grow up in a society where they tell us men, women are the emotional ones, men aren't, we're the logical ones. And the truth of the matter is, we're just as emotional. We just express it through anger and different other emotions that seems masculine, right? And so for me, one of the first things or first ways I would turn to, or one of the first things I would turn to, is my anger. So whether it was punching the refrigerator, punching a hole in the wall, like nobody could tell now because they're like, oh, Josh, so such a calm, laid back guy. But that's how I first began to do so. Then I would turn to my friends, who then it would be, or it would turn into basketball, sports, other ways to try to release, to try to fill in that void. Because in my mind, I was supposed to have this male figure. So if it wasn't friends, then it was other men who I looked up to. I saw other men with with families at my church. I saw, shout out to guy named Brother Farmer, Walt Lewis. Like, they was other men that was at my church that was real, involved, and had their wife, had their kids. And those are the things that I turned in, that I kind of tried to fill the void, looking at how they were, but to me, it was really a mixture of anger and looking up to other people who didn't have that broken home.
Anyone of you guys want to take it?
Anger is a good word. For me, I would more so say I was kind of like embarrassed. Like, my dad, if you think about like first of all, let me just say, my dad wasn't ever really absent. He was always around, and we got a decent enough relationship now. But when I was younger, and he really started to have that monkey of drugs on his back, like, it was really embarrassing for me. I was about 10, 11 years, maybe 12 years old, something like that. And he was the typical guy that you see out on the streets. he wasn't ashamed of hard work, so he do all hard work, but he was known as, you know, somebody that was on drugs, and I was known as somebody that was on drugs son. So it was embarrassing to deal with. Like that's almost how they addressed you, as, you know, Smoke a Mel's son or something like that. You know what I mean? So older guys, you couldn't fight them, you know, so you just had to take it. But one of my outlets was definitely sports. This was back in the time we had to go outside. So we was outside, you know what I mean? As long as we had an even amount of people, we'll play a sport, no matter what it was. Basketball, football, wrestling, whatever. So the outlet for me was definitely sports, and my saving grace. You know, I can't do a show without bringing up my mom. My mom, she held me down. You know what I mean? So while my dad was in she never gave up on him. Like, so I know we're talking about daddy issues, but you know you got to put mom in there.
Right, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? So those was my two major outlets: sports, just being outside until I start, you know, going the wrong way. But being outside, playing sports, and just my mom holding me down. There you have it.
Mark.
You know, I think Josh, you mentioned kind of like not knowing what you don't know. Like, so when I was younger, like I didn't really think all that much about, you know, my dad not being there. It was just kind of like let's roll with the punches and just go with the flow, that sort of thing. And so, you know, I had some incredible dudes that just really just you know, just spread their wings for me, you know, like again, like my brother Pete, you know, my big brother Anthony, my not quite dad, but he's my dad, Cato, you know, like, you know, I think we all got with him. But it's just, you know, it didn't really hit me too much until as I got older. Then it started, you know, to think about, you know, and those Father's Days were starting to get just horrible, man, to deal with, and it's just, and you know, I just had a lot of anger at that point, you know, a lot of anger about, you know, not understanding. And sorry if y'all hear my son in the background.
We breaking generational curses, bro. We breaking generational curses, bro.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, it was. I think what I've been able to do recently, though, is just kind of like, you know, the feelings that I've ever felt that were negative about him, is to swear to never to put that on my own kids.
Yeah.
And that's been the way I've been. I'm like, everything that I never got, I want to make sure that they get, and I'm sure that's probably a little.
I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's really one way that I cope with it today.
I'm looking at some of the comments that are coming in here. I saw
one that came in from comment. Love you, Joe.
Yeah. I saw one came in from Ishmael saying, "Sitting here, it's hard pressed for me to think of more than one of my homies who had their father living at home. Only can think of one." And yeah, like that's crazy. I know Ish from Chester. Chester, a little small. You know, it's not as big as Philly. And it's gotten to the point now where, and we're all fathers, right? It's gotten to the point now where it's almost kind of expected that you're not involved in a sense. Sometimes you talk to people and they say responses that would kind of suggest like, "Oh, you take care of your kid," or "Oh, you probably see them every other weekend." You know, things like that. Like it's almost like suggested that you're a Black father, you're not involved with your child. And I mean, that's another topic for another day. I don't want to go on that tangent right
now. For sure.
But that's kind of what led me to come to this topic, right? Of the daddy issues that involve, because there's so many people who grew up without it, yet for whatever reason, nobody's talking about it. Or they mention it kind of like matter of factly, like your dad wasn't involved, but you should be okay. And that's not the case. You know, we're being realistic. That's not the case. There are a lot of things that, you know, as awesome as a single mother may be, there are just some things that she can't teach a young male about. Plain and simple. As awesome, as amazing, as much work that they do, there are some things that she's not experienced with because she hasn't lived through those things. And there are things like Joshua was touching on, like emotional things that you got to learn how to work through. And if there's no God there teaching you a healthy way to deal with emotion, you're going to become an emotional adult. And you got all this anger, right? As I think that was kind of a common theme amongst the responses, with some anger. You got all this anger, and this is no offense to any woman who may be watching, but women are more emotional. So if they're teaching you how to deal with your emotions, they're going to teach you to express that instead of trying to show you a healthy way to kind of channel that in the other medium, and, you know, healthy ways to kind of deal with those emotions that may be going on with you. So with that being said, hey, that's a perfect segue to the next question. The next question being, I hope I didn't skip one. What are some daddy issues that you feel men have? It doesn't have to be yourself in particular, but just what are some daddy issues that you feel like men have?
Can I'll jump in this one. Well, there's a couple things. Like, we kind of just touched based on that. It's like we all agree, like how you process what you've experienced is very important, right? So with me, just to even touch back a little bit, right? I can agree with, you know, Brother Hassan about you know, mom being there. I could talk about my grandfather who's been there, but, you know, I've had positive role models, as well as, you know, Farmer and Lewis and everybody of that name. But I think a lot of issues that men have to this day is that they never processed it. And so they're so used to dysfunction that they repeat the cycle. So we all can sit here and say, you know what, I process it differently. You know, my father wasn't there, so I processed it differently. So my father wasn't there. So I said, I know what it felt like to be disappointed. I know what it felt like for my dad to say, hey, I'm going to come scoop you up. And I sit at the window for 12 hours and you never come. You know what I'm saying? Or he never comes. You know what I mean? So, you know, I took it as, you know what, I'm going to make sure my kids never feel the way I felt. I took it as, you know, I've never wrestled with my father. But guess what? I wrestle with my boys every single day. You know what I mean? But there's other men out there that have kids, and because they've never had a father to father them, to be dad or whatever the case may be, they never, when it's time for them to have their children, one of their issues is because they've never experienced it, because they processed it wrong, they continue the cycle on making sure, or not making sure, but in the sense they continue the cycle on neglecting their kids. And then when I talk to them, say, yo, you know, why aren't you spending the time, you know, with your kids? Why aren't you taking care of your kids? Their response is, well, I didn't have a father. I don't know how to be a father. And so they kind of lean on that kind of thinking process of, you know what, because I never had dad, I'm gonna repeat the same cycle. And so it just continues on instead of processing a little differently and saying, you know what, I'm gonna try to do something different. You know, I know what it feels like to be hurt, so let me try to make sure I don't hurt somebody. And then another thing I would say, as far as issues that grown men have now, you know what I mean, is, truth be told, we never dealt with those emotions. Yeah. And so there's still that little boy on the inside that's crying out. There's still that little boy on the inside that's hurt. It's still that little boy on the inside that, you know what I mean, that's afraid of commitment because no one committed to them. It's still that little boy on the inside, you know what I mean, that's still feeling neglect. So they don't want to hold on to anything. They neglect everybody else. So those are some of the same issues. Because like you said, no matter how old you get, if you never handle the right, if you never handle those issues from when you were a little child, all it does is those issues mature as you do. My intake.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback on that and really focus on like the you know, like the role model aspect of it all, where it's like, you know, as Black men, you know, there's all sorts of systemic stuff that just you got to deal with, right? And so understanding that, like, if we don't if someone like if we don't like set a good role model, a good example for our kids, then it's not like there's so much like systemic racism, oppression, and all that that's kind of like whittling down how many good role models that that Black kids can have, and they're all like people of color, and so one kind of daddy issue that I think is coming is just that search for a good role model, and if they're not getting it from their dad, they're looking for whomever is out there. And that could, it could lead to something really good, and it could lead to something really bad. But if you have your dad in your life, or at least this is the philosophy I think about with my kids, is that I want them to look at me as a role model. I don't need to be a hero. I know sometimes, you see the movies like, oh, my dad's my hero. I don't need to be a hero.
Mhm.
But I at least want to be a stable role model that they can look to, and they can kind of build off of in terms of the type of person they want to be.
Yeah, before you go, Hassan, it's crazy because one thing that like I've always struggled with as a father, because people are always telling me, "Oh, Reese, you're an awesome father. You're a great father," and things like that. One thing I've always struggled with was like, am I doing enough? Like, or is it that the bar for fatherhood has been set so low that practically showing up and going in public with your child makes you look like a good father? So I've always struggled with this thing of, am I doing enough? Am I actually being a good father, or am I looking like a good father? Because my concern is more so with actually being a good father and not looking like I'm a good father. So I can get little Reese, I can get Arian, and I can post a million pictures with him and then drop them off on Sunday and not see him again for 2 weeks, but people will say, "Oh, you look like a good father." Or I can get them and not post anything, and people are kind of up in the air, but I know what I'm doing. So it's something that I've always struggled with. Like, I've wrestled with that. Like, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? And I get a lot of crap from people close to me who are always like, "Oh, like, you need a break. Like, you need a break. You always getting the kids," or you never take time for yourself, and things like that. And I don't know. I probably do need to take time to myself, if I'm being honest. But on the same token, I say my kids didn't ask to be here. Like, they didn't come to me one day and say, "Hey, daddy, make me." I made them, and I have to. My life has to operate around them. They shouldn't have to operate around my life, right? So I kind of operate in a position where if either one of their moms hit me up like, "Hey, I need you to get them," like, I do whatever is in my power to make sure I do that. And it's something that I've always struggled with, where it's like, okay, I might be dead tired today, but my babies need me. And people will be like, "Oh, just tell them no." And I think that's because that bar is set low. That bar is set so low where you can tell them no. And they're like, "Well, look, you just got them last weekend. So if you skip out on this weekend, you're fine, right?" No, no,
I don't look at it like
right.
that.
Exactly. So that's something that I personally struggle with myself. Now, Hassan, I'll pass the floor to you.
Yeah, I'll be real quick because y'all pretty much hit the nail on the head. But I think that a daddy issue for a lot of guys that grew up without their dad, or with a dad that was like sketchy, like is just trying to do what you didn't have. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can handicap your children with that too. My whole thing was always, I'm never gonna let my kids struggle, like, no matter what. But sometimes they do it. Now my kids, they got it so easy. You know what I'm saying? I think they took a lot of stuff growing up for granted. I got one young child that's 11, and then I got two that's really almost grown, 20 and 19. So when they were little, I made sure that they would never want for anything, because I felt like I had it so kind of hard growing up. But by doing that, I kind of like spoiled them. So to me, that was a daddy issue. I could have done some things differently because I didn't know. Like, I was just trying to pull from what I had growing up and trying to do better than that. But it's more than that. Like, it's you could always do more as a parent. So I felt like I kind of spoiled them and stunted them a little bit as far as their growth. But this is my first time, and that's what I would have
Yeah.
told my dad or any other dad that rolled out. Like, this was your first time. You know what I mean? You might have messed a couple of things up, but you got to stick with it. Or when our parents had us, they didn't know what they was doing. You know what I'm saying? It was trial and error. So you can't just give up on yourself or give up on your family or your children or whatever because you're going through a moment. And that's one of the things that I try to bring with me as a parent, because I get down on myself. I try to do as much for my kids as I can, and then when there's one thing that I can't do, then I'm like, I feel some type of way. But then people always bringing me up like, "Oh, you do this, you're such a good father," but you know, it's more than that. So it's the struggle to try to do more. That's what I would say. That's my issue.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And like I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I think that we all agree that that's just a struggle. Mark, I know you married, but well, Mark and Josh, y'all both married, but I know well, all three of y'all
I'm married
Now
too.
I think about it.
Don't do that, right?
Then I think about it.
Don't
All
do
three
that.
of y'all married.
Don't do that.
Maurice trying to set you up. Maurice trying to set you up.
Man, my feet
Oh,
is
man.
dry from being in the
Oh,
dog
man.
house. Don't do that.
Trying to get you killed.
Trying to, man.
Oh man.
He didn't
Oh.
mean it, baby.
Oh.
It's all love. But I know for me, like being in a separate household as the kids, that's something that I'm like super duper. It's always on my mind. Like, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Especially with my son, because I don't have any custody arrangement with my son. But I'm just going to go on down to the next question. The next question, I believe the next question you guys got was different. I decided to mold 4 and 5 because they're basically the same question. So question 4 is question 4 and 5 is just how has your father shaped and molded you into the man that you are? You can list positive and negative things that your father has done to shape you into the man that you are. In this absence or inconsistency or whatever it was that you've been dealing with.
The one thing I say, like I said, one time, quick story. My dad had a job. This was when he first really had the monkey on his back real hard, and he was on night shift. So me and my mom would go up to the job. I'm about 10, 11 years old. We go up there at that Thursday night when he get paid to get money from him, because if we just let him work, he would never come home, and we wouldn't see him till maybe Monday. We wouldn't see him that whole weekend. So we had to go up there and, do what we could, get what we could from him. But long story short, he lost that job, and then from there, he never stopped working. He would always do little odd jobs, and whenever he did those odd jobs, he always brought me with him. So one time, he ran into a guy that was doing a concrete job, and they was pouring concrete, mixing concrete, and doing whatever they was doing with the payments. And he brought me out there with him, and he had me carrying these heavy. Imagine those 5-gallon filled with wet cement, and I'm just carrying.
Man.
I'm struggling. I was always big for my size, but man, but I couldn't tell him that it was too heavy, that it was too much, or anything like that, because he was doing it. If he could do it, I could do it. You know what I'm saying? So even when he was in the mix or whatever, he always made sure that he said, "Hey, if you want something, you got to work for it." And I think I got my work ethic from him for sure. As far as like anything negative, I would probably have to say just we didn't really have the best communication. It was more or less you talk, I listen. He wasn't really into, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on with you? You know what I'm saying? He never really got into that. And so I didn't know how to do that with my children. You know what I'm saying? I just, hey, what you doing? You doing good in school? You not being bad? You listening to your mom? All right, cool. But I never really got a chance to ask them how they was feeling. And that's all I really wanted when I was growing up, was somebody to at least acknowledge me, like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, not really, do you need anything, but just like, are you okay? Do you need somebody to talk to?
Mm.
Or so, um, I would say that the weakness or the thing that I lacked was how to communicate properly, even with the opposite sex, with my spouse or whatever like that.
Mm.
I think I get those communication issues from him as well, but I got my work ethic from him too.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
it kind of balance
Um,
out all good.
You brought up a good point just then when you said that opposite sex thing. And I'll get to you guys for that next question, Josh and Mark. I ain't forget about y'all. But when it comes to interacting with the opposite gender, right? And you haven't witnessed a healthy relationship between your mother and father, it takes you into a relationship when you first start dating and you got no idea what to do. Like, no
Right,
idea
right.
whatsoever what to do. I mean, my first girlfriend, real girlfriend, I was 15, and by the end of the first week, I'm in love, flat out. Like, I love you, girl. We're gonna get married. You ain't going nowhere. I got you. You got me. I'm right, and we ain't have it costs. I think it costs like 20 cents to send a text message back then, so I couldn't
Right.
text. But I would like physically write the little letters, physically write little letters and slip them to her, telling her how much I loved and cared for her, and things like that. And I can remember she would always say that, like, she was like, you don't, as we got older, because we dated for a while, as we got older, she would always say, like, you don't talk about your emotions. Like, when things are bothering you, like, you don't express them. You just kind of hold them in, or you just kind of say, yes, you're right, and kind of keep it going. But why is that? And I was like, well, I had to really think about it. I was like, well, my mom and dad fought and argued all the time. And for me, I didn't want to continue that cycle.
Right.
So the only way I knew to break that cycle was to automatically make myself the loser, regardless. Like, if I knew I didn't know with 100% certainty I was right, but I gave myself the L because in my mind, I wasn't doing it. Like, I didn't want, especially when my son was born, I was like, he's not going to grow up in that environment. So if daddy got to be wrong 100% of the time, daddy will be wrong 100% of the time. But not realizing that from a romantic standpoint, like, she wasn't right all the time, if I'm just being frank with you. So what tended to happen was, like, as I got kind of older, and this towards the end of the relationship, when I kind of started putting my foot down on certain issues, like, nah, I'm actually right on this one. She was like, what? Like, what? I'm wrong? Oh my God. She's like, you're telling me I'm wrong? Where did that come from? So that absence of that father, and not just the absence of a father, I think, I told one of my friends who talked to me about kind of like how him and his wife were talking about separating, and he was like, he's tried to repair it. And I remember my exact words to him was, because he was like, well, I want to stick in there for the kids. I said, it's better for your kids to grow up in 2 healthy homes than 1 unhealthy home. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Like, so if you guys are unhealthy together, then I would advise you to do what's best for the kids. That's to show them what a healthy home looks like. And if that's not with their biological mother, show them that with another mother. All right, that's my little tangent. So, go ahead. If y'all want to add to that, go ahead. Vince had a comment up, and that kind of I'll put Vince's comment up again. He had a comment up that kind of brought me to that too. Misguided anger, feelings of abandonment, identity issues, even intimacy issues. I gravitate towards authoritative males for friendships, and I used to have a hard time dealing with rejection in general. So with that being said, Mark, Josh, you guys take the floor back from there.
Yeah,
just
it's funny because, well, it's not funny. None of this is funny. So even though my dad hasn't been in the picture, he's played a role in my life, because he's my dad, and it's just the way it is. So it's like, whether it's I don't want to do what he did to me, or I wonder what he was like, and like just kind of using all that sort of thing to kind of help build who I am. He's always going to be a part of my life. So it's I mean, there's some good and some bad, and you know, to even say that there's some good, so like just to be like to say that there's some good to how he has molded me when he hasn't been around is crazy. But there, I mean, you know, we got to take things in our own hands. At the end of the day, I can't just be soaking around and say, "Oh, he ain't here." You know, I'm gonna just be a loser or something like that. You know, I have to take what he has given me, which is his absence, and turn it into something good. And so, I mean, that's my answer. You know, I want to just be like, man, that, you know, like that's not really how I feel. So I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way.
I mean, shaped and molded. It's a little bit pretty much of what Marcus and has just said. Like, and kind of what I've been said earlier. Like, I processed it differently. So, as we all have, we processed it in a way of saying, you know what, his lack of motivated me to be the father that I am today. But and even to touch back on that other topic when it comes down to what you're saying with relationships, right? So one thing, it not only does it help me strive to be a better father, but it also helps me to remind me to even be a better husband, so that by being a better husband, I am also at the same time being a better father. Because having a healthy relationship between your spouse is also teaching your kids what it means to communicate with the opposite sex. It's also teaching them something, when they see me and my wife and we may not be in agreement with something, but we're handling it in a healthy way, that teach them how to handle conflict, because that's also healthy to teach people how to handle confrontation, And so, him not being there is also, making me realize not to tell myself or to remind myself not to let pride take control. Because as men, we're prideful, and oftentimes because we have a weakness somewhere, we're even more prideful to cover up that weakness. Mm-hmm. And so I'm also constantly reminding myself, he wasn't a good father. He wasn't a good father. He wasn't a good husband. So you know what? Let me make sure I'm being as affectionate, and thank God for the gems my mom gave me all my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter how long you're married, remember to keep dating, stuff like that. And not get complacent, stuff like that, whatever. But it's good because when I do surprise my wife, I involve my son. Mm. You know what I mean? When I do surprise my wife, my son is right there to see it.
Now he know how to move when he get older.
Correct. So when he's seeing me being affectionate with my wife, then he knows, what, this is how I do it. When he sees me surprising my wife, he's involved in it. If he sees me buying a gift, like just like what a month or so ago, it was a just because gift. It was no anniversary, it was no birthday. It was just a just because I love you type thing. I went out, bought her something. And then while I was going out, he was with me. He was like, Dad, I want to buy her something too. So we went to Build-A-Bear. He did a Pikachu dressed as Spider-Man Build-A-Bear. And then that was his idea. It wasn't my idea. That was his idea. But it made me proud as a father because I realized because I do that for her, now he's gotten to a place where now he's thinking and saying, you know what? This is how I'm going to treat my mom. And so thus, when he gets older, he'll be more thoughtful. Whereas again, as men, we was told, not to be emotional or as affectionate, that we only supposed to be providers and logical thinkers. So, I could say his absence has encouraged me or molded me with my mom's teaching, as a husband and as a father.
So
What's
I
up?
know for me, right? And y'all excuse me if I tear up because whenever I talk about my dad passing, I get a little emotional. But like my dad passed in 2010. It was a sudden death. I talked to him the morning that he passed away. And I never really talked directly to my dad about the fact that he had like a drinking problem or anything like that. It was always like the elephant in the room. Like he just kind of lived through life, and my friends knew, no one talked about it. My family knew, no one really talked about it, and it just kind of existed. So one big thing that I had going on when my dad passed was the initial thing was like, well, damn, like I never talked to him about this, and now he's gone. So fast forward, I met you 10 years ago. Part of the reason that I'm so intentional about saying stuff like I appreciate you, I love you, and things like that, because I really don't know when it's going to be someone's like my last time talking to somebody. And part of the thing that made me find my solace in my dad's passing was I was leaving out for work that morning. And I was like, all right, Dad, see you later, love you. And I walked out the door for work. And when I was like kind of beating myself up for never talking to him about like the issues and things like that, like I was like, well, at least the last thing he heard me say was I love you. Like
Right.
at least like that's something I can hang my hat on. So one way that he kind of shaped and molded me into the person that I am in his passing is he just has me like really appreciative of people while they're here. Um, Another thing is like my dad, he stopped giving me money when I started working. But he always gave me time. Like always gave me his time. And my dad worked at Dave and Buster's right there on Delaware Ave. And we live right there in Richard Island. So he's bike ride and walking distance away. And I was playing in a basketball league, if you're familiar with North Philly, right there at the Cunningham Center. So not too far away, maybe like right around the corner. And I was playing in a basketball league there. And my dad, we work at 12. If my basketball game was at 11, he would come and watch until 11:45 and leave out to go to work. Like, so regardless of what was going on, we played pickup football down the Blackhawks field. My dad would be out there in the freezing cold just watching my friends play pickup football. My dad would try to play the video game every now and then. Like my dad would, he had us out in the woods camping, had us trying to fish, took us up Wissahickon. So he wasn't the best financially, like he wasn't that financial provider, but what he did provide was time. It didn't matter how low he felt, how drunk he was, how messed up he was, how tired he was. My dad was going to make time for me. So I'm really, 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 really big on giving people my time now because it's like, look, that's the one thing that's priceless. And people can, like, I can't tell you one gift that my dad brought me, my mom brought me, my brothers brought me. I can't tell you all the gifts they brought me, but I can tell you some memories that I have with them, right?
Right.
So when I think about my children, I'm like, create memories with them, create memories. Even if, all your check went to rent, this week, find some way to create a memory with them. So even if that is taking them, to the park and letting them run around, even if that is, oh, we lost. What happened, Josh? I don't know what's going on. Oh, I thought Josh popped back in the chat. Did I lose him? All right. I don't know what happened, Josh. but like he always gave me time. So part of the thing that he shaped me was like, give your kids time. It doesn't matter how you're feeling, how bad you might have been, how bad your day was. You can always give them time. Like there's no excuse to not give your children time. From a negative standpoint, again, like I said, my dad, I didn't start drinking until I turned 21. And even then I was really hesitant because I didn't know up until I turned 21 that there was a difference between drinking alcohol and being an alcoholic.
Right.
As crazy as that might sound, like
No, it's not
I
crazy.
thought, like
There's some people now that don't know the difference.
right. So it took me a long time to realize, like, oh, I can have a beer and not be an alcoholic. So at 21, I kind of started drinking. It was funny, like when I first started drinking, I had people telling me, like, oh man, you're gonna be just like your dad. And I was like, well, look, I might only have one beer a month. Like,
Right.
I think I'm all right. I think I'm all right. But with that being said, like that was a thing for me. Like early on, I was really, really conscious. Like I'm not drinking, I'm not touching alcohol. Like if you drinking, I'm not hanging around you. I dealt with that enough um, growing up, and it took me a long time to be able to separate this. So honestly, I heard it from a lot of people that you could drink and not be alcoholic. It wasn't until my oldest brother said it to me. My oldest brother was like, "Yo, you just gotta know how to control it. Like just because you have a drink, it doesn't mean you're gonna end up like that." And I was like, "Huh?" And it was my 21st birthday. He was like, "Come out with me, man. I'm gonna take you out with me, and you know, I'm gonna show you the ropes." And that's kind of how I was like, "Oh, okay, I can healthily, socially drink. Like I don't have to
Right.
get belligerent and things like that." Um, so there's that. My dad was a big music head. He liked a lot of old school music, like Temptations and all of that stuff. So I listened to a lot of things like that, man. It was awesome. Like I said, he had his vice. I was just talking to my mom about this. I had to get her permission. You say you can't forget the mission. Mom, I had to get her permission before I told these stories about my dad. And that's one thing I said to him. I said, you know, if you take his vice aside, and I think we all have struggles, they just aren't always alcoholism or drug addiction. I think we all have struggles.
Mm.
But if you take that aside, he was awesome, man. One thing I killed that I just get upset that I didn't see that while he was still here. So that's a big thing that bugs me. And that kind of brings me to my next point. My final question that I have for you guys is, are y'all open? Would you be open to repairing the relationship with your father? How you can take that one last?
Yeah. All right. That's cool.
I'll start this off.
Be honest, bro.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
That's an honest answer, man.
yeah. I mean, I want to say yes. You know, especially with my faith, and you're supposed to forgive, and you know what I'm saying, and I wanted to say yes, over repair, but I don't know, man. A lot of people really poured a lot into me to help me get to where I am, and I feel like I'm living a life that was made possible by them, and I almost feel like repairing the relationship with my dad could derail it, to be honest. I know that might be kind of irrational. Like, what does that, how could that really happen that you repair? But I just have that kind of, maybe it's a bit of fear. And if it's fear based, then I really should, think about this some more, because we're not supposed to fear, things like this. But really, I'm just like, maybe it's just meant for him to be what he's been all this time. Like I was saying before, he's not here, so his absence has really helped to mold me. In addition to, many other things, it's helped to mold me into who I am and the vision I have for my life and my kids, and my wife, and and all anybody who's in my life. Like I have that vision based off his absence. It would have to. I don't think it could be like a real chummy father son. I think I would be cordial. I wouldn't express hate or anything like that. But it just can't be a Hollywood kind of father son. Getting back together like old times. When there was no old times. It just can't. I don't think it could be like that.
Yeah, that's a real honest answer, man. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Josh.
So I would say right now, pretty much I'm open. So when I was 17, I was about to have my child sermon, right? At 17, and I decided to actually reach out to my father. Haven't heard from him in a long time, and I reached out to him and to repair that relationship. And for me, it was more for me than it was for him. It was more, it's like in a sense, like when you don't forgive somebody, right? When you don't forgive somebody, it damaged you. That person's living their best life. You're the one harboring on it. You're the one that's going through it. You know what I mean? And for me reaching out to him and repairing that relationship, I repaired the relationship without having a high expectation. So I didn't expect it to be that he would be 100% consistent because he's already shown me that he wasn't 100% consistent. I didn't expect him, that we about to go outside and play catch. Well, that time is over already. I'm already a grown man at this point. You know what I mean? And so at this point, it was not so much that I was expecting him to be my dad, right? Anyone could be a father, but then I kind of look at it different from dad and father, right? And even though I may say dad, in my mindset, at this point of me and one adult talking to another, it was more of a friendship. He had the respect. Okay, you were the one who brought me into this world, but you know what? I'm just looking to talk to you, get some answers, and then as time went on, we wound up building a friendship where we could call each other. But do I expect to talk to my dad every day? No, we don't talk every day. I'm grown. I've already had a life and system, like you said, and people who poured into me. My grandfather poured into me about what a man, is supposed to be, as long as my mom and others. You know what I mean? So for me, me and my dad has built the relationship that it could be, or that it is, based off of what has already transpired. You know what I mean? The fact that he wasn't there, all of that is what makes us, up. But my dad's also very honest with me. Like he'll say, I'm the example of what you should never become and all the choices you should never make. And your mom is the example of everything that you should follow through with. And so he's very honest with that. Now, everybody's not going to have that experience. And if you do decide, anyone who's watching or listening, if you do decide to do so, don't go in with a high expectation, but just go in, if you decide to, just go in, get your answers, see what it could become of it. If it don't become of anything, then you didn't have expectation, so you won't be disappointed. If it does become something productive, then you're in a place where, where it does. But he won't add or take away from anything you've already developed, because this is something that you didn't come in with the expectation. Like, Brother Marcus said, Hollywood, father, son, or like how we are with our kids right now, So yeah, I've already repaired that relationship. But like I said, it's more, it's father, son, but we're friends. You know what I mean? We have that strong friendship.
All right. I'll try to make a long story less long. But my mom passed away September 29th, 2009. And before that, she was cancer. She was fighting cancer. So it wasn't a sudden thing. It was a gradual thing. It was just, watching her just basically deteriorate, and then she passed. But a lot of things changed. I didn't handle her sickness well, and I kind of lashed out a lot of people, and I didn't like that. I didn't like the way that my father was moving during that time. So when my mom passed, and we had a service and everything like that, I did not speak to my dad. I didn't want to have nothing to do with him. He would try to call a couple of times. I'd show him off. Maybe I get one of my children the phone, let them talk to him. But I didn't want to have nothing to do with him. One day I went to church. The word got good to me, and it was about forgiveness. And I'm like, "What you doing, man? You bugging? You lost your mom. You don't have any grandparents. That's all you got right there." So at the church, took my family home, went right over there, knocked on the door, answered the door. I couldn't even get out what I wanted to say. I just fell out crying. He started crying. You know what I mean? We sat there, we cried, we hugged each other, we had a drink. And the thing that something that you had said earlier, Rush, we had that moment, but we never talked about anything. We never said anything. I never told him what my issue was. He never told me where he was coming. He never really explained his actions. So the void that ended up happening because of that is like now. I haven't talked to my dad in probably a month or something like that because he did something that I didn't approve of. And really, who am I that had to get approval from your own son? But it was that, and I just we never really he never really we never really got that communication thing like how we should have it as two adult males, let alone father and son. So now we kind of on the outs over something trivial that's really kind of not my business anyway. Like, but you know, with certain things, I got certain boundaries up with him because of the past. And whenever something like that is crossed, to either keep from being overly aggressive towards him or just shutting them out verbally. I shut them out non-verbally. So I'm kind of like falling into another pattern again. But I wasn't open to it originally. God got in my spirit and he moved me. You know what I'm saying? He took me there. He made me go there, and we got cool. I was able to be there for him when his sister passed. Like a couple different big occasions that I probably wouldn't have been there before had I had took that hard stance on when my mom passed. I'm not dealing with nobody, just my family, my children, my wife, etc. But I let him in, and you know, he's doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? We cool. We got a real good relationship, but we don't communicate the way that we should, and that's kind of leading me into what I'm going through now. What not going through now, but like an issue that I could have at home would say, you know, I never know what's going wrong with you. Only time I find out what's going on with you is when you finally fed up and you snap. You know what I'm saying? So that communication that I've always been looking for from him was still lacking even today. So with that said, I think that probably tomorrow I'll go sit down with him and we'll actually talk. You know what I'm saying? I'm open to it. That's my pop, man. That's all I got left. Everybody tell me like the last thing I wrote. I seen Ish put it in the comments, but the last thing I wrote on my little cheat sheet right here is I'm my father's child. I look just like him. I act just like him. I talk like him. The music, like everything. Only thing I didn't get from him was his intelligence. I got my intelligence from my mom. Because he's a simple-minded kind of guy. But he's real funny. Quick story for Lil Pete. He was telling Pete had DJ'd my daughter's prom. And I left them two alone, Pete and my dad, for a minute. I think I went to the bathroom or something like that. I come back, I'm like, oh yeah, my papa DJ too. He looked at me like, I know, he told me. He just got a way about it, man, to know him, to love him. And I feel like I got his personality 110%. So it's up to us. Like we men now. So if it's something that you want to fix, go ahead and fix it, man. Don't worry about, you know, what if it don't work or something like that. You don't know until you try, man. And like my brother said, it can't hurt you. You got nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying? You at a point now, you done made it this far without him. He can only benefit from it. You can only benefit from it. If he's not bringing nothing to you, you can go back to how it was. But you never know. It might end up working out for you. It ended up working out for me. So, you know what I mean? There you have it, man. It's a blessing.
Yeah, I'll do a quick story. We're a little over on our time, but I'll do a quick story. I have a friend now I went to church with, and I talked to him about my dad, and he was having issues with his father. His father was kind of on drugs and things like that. And he told me, he said, you know, I intentionally talked to you about my dad issues because I know your story about your dad, and I know like you're always going to tell me to fix the relationship. And Like every time I saw him. Well, not every time I saw him, but every few times I saw him, I'd be like, "Yeah, you call your pop, man?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna call him." Or he called me and I ignored the call. And earlier this year, unfortunately, his dad passed away, man. And he was able to make strides in the right direction by the end of it. Like he started to make those strides. And I think that we have this habit of thinking that people, as I got Bob's comment up here, just thinking, like, not realizing that, like, death is a real thing, like, real, like, it's, you know, in our minds, everybody lives until they're 90, 100 years old, but cats start dying, like, in the age range, like, once you hit 30, like, I know cats my age have been dropped from heart attacks, they've been dropped from strokes, they've been just dropped just because. So, like my thing is, it's kind of like you have these feelings of resentment, and the best way to deal with a feeling of resentment, if you know, you talk about therapy, of course, which is helpful, but having a direct conversation. I don't know how many people are like Christians, but I know the Bible says if you have a fault with your brother, go talk to them, just the two of you. That's biblical. I know everyone doesn't believe in God, but I truly believe that that's practical advice as well, just not spiritual advice. If you have a fault, go talk to them, just the two of you. If he hears you, you have won him over. That's like kind of how I feel about, you know, the relationship with your father, not just with your father, with anybody. Talk to him, at least give it a shot. I would encourage you. Just, you know, hey, you know, let's go out to eat. You know, let's have a conversation real quick. Like Haas is saying, if it don't go nowhere, what did you lose? Besides a couple of hours, you know. If it does, then you gained the friend. You know, and if it goes great, then you gained the father. You know, worse, you know, if it does okay, then you gain the friend. If it does great, you gain the father. And I don't think either of those things are bad things. And even from like a practical sense, you can learn about family history. You can learn about some health things that you might be dealing with. You learn about some behaviors that you might be, you know, see in your children. You can learn some more about how to interact like with women and things like that. Yeah, before we sign off, Marcus, I know you got some things that you're doing in your personal life. Outside of the doctorate, I know you off there, Marcus. If you want to take a second to go ahead and put your plug in.
Oh man, I didn't want to plug nothing, man. This is not about me. This is a much bigger thing than me. Thanks for the offer, though.
All right. That's Arthur Marcus right there. So I don't know how many books you got now. I definitely got one of them. You know, we got Haas. If you got anything you want to plug, you go ahead and plug it in there.
No, I'm good, man. I'm here for you, bro. This is healthy, man. I needed this.
And Josh, anything you want to plug?
Nah, man, just everybody, you know, stay positive, stay up, you know what I mean? Take care of your health, you know what I mean? Definitely take care of yourselves. If y'all have families, love them, you know what I mean? Tell them, express, you know, let them know what they mean to you. Don't wait, you know, to give the roses, you know what I mean? When it's time to put somebody in the ground. If your loved one, if your spouse is telling you something that's wrong, don't ignore it. Actually listen to them. Try your best to make the effort, you know what I'm saying, to actually work towards it, because they're not telling you to hurt you. They're telling you to actually, you know what I mean, make y'all better. You know what I mean? Every time someone confronts you doesn't mean it's a negative thing. Sometimes you need that. You know, me and my wife will tell me in a heartbeat when something's wrong. And then sometimes I say to her, hey, guess what? Dig in me. You know what I mean? You know, as much as I don't like it, she'll dig in me, but at least I know where we stand. You know what I mean? So it's very good. So my plug is pretty much for everybody. Just have healthy relationships, have healthy lives. You know what I'm saying? Love one another.
Yeah. So again, thanks you guys for watching, man. Next week I'll be announcing my next video. So my schedule is Wednesday announce, Wednesday hold. So next Wednesday I will announce the next subject. The following Wednesday we'll hold the next conversation. Guys, I'll definitely have y'all back on again if y'all willing. It's gotta be about this subject, but you know, I definitely want to have y'all back on again. I'm gonna get some T-shirts, so y'all send me y'all sizes, and I'll give y'all a T-shirt for free when we can go outside. But no, man, thank you guys for coming. Thanks everybody for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, man. Thanks for coming out, man. Love y'all.
Wash your hands.
So.
Wash your hands. Wash your hands.
Masked up.
Take care, y'all.